What would be great to talk about is where we are culturally with some of this stuff, if that's okay with you. Hopefully nothing
Sure.
too controversial. But whether you're seeing it, we get a sense that there has been a bit of a backlash against ESG or ethical or activist investing in the last sort of 2 or 3 years maybe, and particularly with where America is at the moment, a definite pushback on some of these things that have been prevalent for a while or growing for a while, I guess. What's your view on that backlash? Where's that coming from? What's motivated it? How do you respond?
Yeah, big questions.
Yeah.
So where has it come from? I think there's two things. Sustainable investing has been bundled up as one thing, although it's quite different things, right? We all know that now. But I think there's certain parts of the sustainable investment themes that have struggled in terms of performance, matching up exactly to traditional investments because they are investing in a subset of the market intentionally that will show different performance. So you end up in the same place, but depending on where you started in that journey, you might have had a very different journey to get there. So, investors that have probably previously come in with a thought or with maybe not necessarily ill-advised, but with the intention that they thought it's going to be exactly the same journey with all the sustainability on top, might have been disappointed and kind of fallen out of the race. I think that's one thing that we need to address, and we've been addressing it in terms of the way that we run portfolios, resilience and risk management through all of our portfolios now, and I think we're in a really strong place. The second thing that has been driving the backlash is politics and culture wars, particularly coming from kind of polarization in the US, but also in Europe, let's be honest, right? There's the rise of right-wing governments across there too. And I think what happens is that they're very loud, these anti-ESG movements, and so public perception becomes attached to those. But what you can see on the ground, and we are very close to the businesses and to the investors as well, is that often it doesn't necessarily translate into any difference in activity. So they might say they are changing their DEI policies, but what they're doing is they're continuously doing the programs of hiring and recruiting in the exact same way that they did before. They just might not call it that way. They might call it inclusivity, or they might call it culture, right? So there's a little bit of language movement away from to respond to that ESG backlash, where sometimes the action hasn't really been matched or downgraded in any way. So that's kind of a short answer to that. One thing that I want to just bring up here is I just recently saw a survey where loads of CEOs in the US have been surveyed anonymously, of course, about their approach to environmental, social, and governance and what they're doing now that there's been push from the US administration to kind of lower their standards. And they said that despite the pushback, they continuously do it because they see that it makes financial sense for their businesses in the short term, which is less than 4 years, which is the entire presidency of Trump, right? Which I think is really interesting to see that CEOs, smart people, done this for a long time, really believe it makes sense financially to take care of stakeholders. And this is the reason why we think sustainability works and continuously works, whether or not it's like in vogue in the media or not.
Yeah, and that last point is probably the important one, actually, which is that it was maybe an unfair question of me, so I apologize, but we haven't seen any change in what we're being asked for from clients. If anything, probably they're becoming more aware, more concerned about how their capital is deployed and used, and what they're engaging with and the impact that they're having with their capital. So I guess it is that, isn't it? It's noise, it's media, headlines a lot of the time, and it is probably a smaller subset of people being very more vocal about it. It's interesting what you say about what companies are doing, not necessarily reflecting. What they're saying, not necessarily reflecting what they're doing, but in a positive way. Because very often in this space, it's the other way around. So it's interesting that they're focusing on those things.